My name is Jordan Redfield Wade. By day, I'm a philanthropist and private investigator, but by night, I protect the people of Newark City in a different way.
My name, champ, is RedWing.
As she lay dying, I promised my mother that I would fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves, and I refused to let her down. I am the defender of Newark City. I am RedWing.
Hello everyone and welcome to Kit's Commentary Corner. I'm your host, Kit Mojito, and I'm joined by a very special guest today. She's a very important woman in Newark City, doing a lot of wonderful things, and looking just fabulous while she does it, I might add. Sandra Fields, welcome to my show.
Thank you so much for having me, Kit. Thank you for the compliment, and I might say, right back at you. I love that skirt with that bow tie.
That is so kind of you, truly. Well, I brought you here to talk about some things from this week's news. I suppose the first order of business is the vigilante. What are your thoughts on the vigilante?
Well, my thoughts on this are about as complex as the character himself, you see. On the one hand, I think it's great that there's a citizen who wants to aid the police department's ongoing struggles with organized crime. But on the other hand, I cannot condone violence of a citizen against another citizen. When justice falls into the hands of one person, when one person decides who lives and who dies, how can we even be sure we're safe? I also think he's young, and that it's just a phase he's going through. Every child should be able to sow his wild oats while they still have the chance.
Earlier today, I spoke with Council Member Redfield Wade about the situation with the missing men and women, as well as the housing problem, but the response I received was defensive and tepid at best. What is your opinion on the disuse for the last 17 years of that estate? What should happen to the land?
Well, Kit, I'm afraid there's nothing we can do about the land. The land is owned by his family, and his family alone. And it's also a historic landmark, which I entirely appreciate. This means that the house can be used, or not used, as he decides. Of course, I would support there being more shelters and a clinic, but that's just not up to me. And I think our police force will find the missing people. They won't be missing for much longer. You must have faith.
Words of encouragement from the First Lady of Newark City. Could we ask for more? Now, I heard your husband, Mayor Fields, will be announcing a new project on Saturday. Is that correct?
Why, yes, he will be. I'm sad to say that I cannot tell you any more about it. It will be very positive, groundbreaking in fact, and it'll be in Irreverent Heights, Saturday evening. You can look forward to seeing me there.
I'm personally looking forward to seeing what you wear to that event.
Oh, darling, that would be something groundbreaking, I promise. You.
Oh, well, Mrs. Fields, you are an absolute treat. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, please, dear, call me Sandra. It's been my pleasure.
Joanna grabbed the remote and shut off the TV. She rolled her eyes.
I really don't trust her. Really, I don't like either of them.
Speak on it, sis. I don't trust either of them.
So, magic is just energy, huh? Well then.
She was reclining on the couch, holding the bowl of lemonade while I finished the sesame chicken. She scrunched up her nose a little bit, unsettling her black glasses, which she did only while in deep thought.
But if that is the case, then it follows the rules of energy, same as the rest of the universe. So, magic presumably can be worked with, examined, and even counteracted by science? So why then when we tried to do a scan of the field was it unviewable on the screen?
Probably because a radiograph isn't going to pick up life force energy or psychic energy. It would only really pick up physical energy, I guess. I quickly shoved 3 pieces of sesame chicken into my mouth, chewing and swallowing them like a marathoner. I mean, I'm not exactly sure how we scan these things, but I'm sure we'll figure it out.
It's just so fascinating. I wonder why you can do magic and I can't.
According to Scarlet, it seems to be genetic. I guess someone in my bloodline had magical blood.
But if that were the case, your parents would have had powers then, and they wouldn't have...
She paused, not wanting to bring up my parents' death. I crossed my arms, leaning back in the chair, being done with food for the moment. Hey, I'm not sure. But no matter. Time to hunt for Blackbird tonight. I left for my bedroom, and when I came back, Jo had one laptop open, and the other slung over her shoulder in a messenger bag. Jo always used 2 laptops, as well as the agency computer while doing surveillance. Jo had even grabbed the obligatory Twizzlers that hung out of her mouth while she was working on hacking and coding. She rolled around and threw me my comm device and my mask.
I updated the mask with an EMF tracker, enhanced right vision, a scope, and ultrasonic movement detectors. Also, there is an experimental setting in the mask that scans for traces of ectoplasmic residue.
Ectoplasm? The ghost goop from Ghostbusters? Why that stuff?
Hey, maybe it'll pick up what the other scanners couldn't. I still have to collect some data, right?
Wait, when did you add it to the mask? All I did was go and change?
It only took 3 minutes to add. I just had to update the lens.
I smiled and winked at her. God, Jo, you're such a genius.
Understatement of the century. Did you expect anything less?
She looked at the computer and looked back at me.
Oh, and I also repaired the transmitter on that tooth cap. All should be well with it. No more blacking out somewhere near the edge of the city. I dare say it would work even if you were in San Francisco.
I put on the tooth cap and placed my mask on my head. Thanks, homegirl, but I don't exactly plan on being on the other side of the country. I hopped on the window ledge, pulling my grappling dart from its calf holster. I opened the window and looked out. I smelled the fresh rain that would be coming soon. The wind has a certain flavor before the skies cry with its sweet tears. I loved grappling in the rain. I liked that it was dangerous and presented more of a challenge for me. I was passing a medium-height building with a pole sticking out of the side. I flung the dart so it would wrap around the pole, and have gravity swing me under the pole and up into the air. When I got high enough, I lifted my arms, as if I was about to try and hug the moon. In that moment, I felt like a bird taking flight. It's moments like that that I wish I had a cameraman around me at all times. I'm sure the silhouette would have looked great against the moonlight. My musings about this were interrupted by Jo.
Hey, Jay, you got a call. It's from Dean. What does he want?
My heart froze in my chest for a second. Dean Morgan, the man who broke my heart, was calling despite a direct order from his boss, my adoptive police chief father, to not contact me. I guess this had to be pretty serious. I sighed. Put him through, Jo.
Okay, I'll be silent, but I'm gonna be listening in, okay?
Sure thing. The earpiece crackled for a moment, and then I heard his familiar smooth voice.
Jordan?
Dean, what do you want? I'm kinda busy.
What, straight to business? No. Hello, Dean. It's been a while. How are you?
My voice was measured and flat. I was really hoping he couldn't hear me jumping from building to building.
We still aren't there yet?
Not really, no.
Why are you doing this?
Him sounding hurt from my coldness honestly just made me angry. Remember what happened?
We've been over this. I don't even...
That doesn't absolve you. I gritted my teeth and took a deep breath before continuing. I have every right to still be mad at you. This is still entirely your fault. You ended it when you went to bed with a stranger on my fucking birthday.
Okay, no, it cannot be on me. You had shut me out already with all your secrets. The late nights, the weird disappearances. How do I know you weren't with someone else? For God's sakes, Jordan. I am a cop. And I spend more time worrying where you are and if you're okay.
We both paused. He had a point, but I wasn't going to give him that. I swooped and tumbled into a kneeling position. Whatever. What do you need? Get to it, will you? I'm a little busy.
Well, it's about Jared. I can't tell you over the phone. Meet me in 2 hours at La Gardenia.
Of course, he'd pick the spot where we had our first date. Of course he would. I groaned in frustration. Okay, fine. See you in 2 hours.
Great. See you then.
He hung up and Joe came back on, sounding exactly like I expected her to sound.
What a fucking prick. Dad would fire him if he weren't a damn good cop.
Right? Ugh. Well, okay. I'll bring the comm device to that, too. We'll have to make the search of this apartment pretty quick.
Okay, your ETA is about 30 seconds at this rate. I'll keep the optics on and record while you hunt. We'll both use our eyes.
When I got to the fire escape of the apartment, I noticed there was a light on in the bedroom. It flicked off very quickly. I silently opened the window and entered. I didn't hear anything, but I hung to the shadows. Jo didn't make a sound on the comm, but she turned on the heat sensors. I could see the neighbors were sharing a moment of pleasure in the apartment next door. Their heat was radiating through the walls, due to the intense passion between them.
Gross. Ugh, gross. Ugh.
I heard a slight rustle to my left, near the bedroom door. I kept my eyes low when I looked over. I saw a shape that stood for a moment in the doorway, before it vanished. I drew my weapon and entered the room. I turned on the light, expecting to see Blackbird. Instead, I was greeted to the same bed as before, with another note on the desk. God damn it, he's not here, but he left another note. I read the note aloud, even though Jo could see it. Not yet. You and I will meet at the place where the gargoyles keep watch. Your favorite perch. I'll see you there, Blackbird.
Couldn't you just give me a name? Like, honestly.
I'm sure he has some good reasons. I guess I'll be home soon then.
Can you grab a 6-pack and some Moscato on the way home?
No.
Why not?
Had she gone completely off her rocker? I was almost concerned. You serious? Because I'm dressed like a goddamn super spy, Jo. Also, I don't have my license.
Oh, right. Okay, I'm fine. Fine. I'll go grab some down the street. I'm shutting off the comm system for the next 10 minutes.
I heard a little bloop and I climbed back out the window. At least I knew he actually did stay there. And at least I'd get answers from him soon. I went home and thought about changing out of the uniform, but I left everything but the mask on. The suit is not specifically very bulky, so I figured it would be fine underneath a dress shirt and other clothing. I had a drink with Jo to calm my nerves about my meeting with Dean. She said she was tired, but that she'd leave the equipment to record my time with Dean. She went to bed and I upgraded my outfit a little bit. I decided on a pair of black slim cargo pants, a fitted red dress shirt with rolled tab sleeves and gold buttons, and a black 4-button double-breasted suit vest. I let my hair be its normal, amazing self. I always believe that when meeting an ex-boyfriend, it's important to look your best. Look like you didn't miss them. Look like you're thriving and show them what they lost when they gave you up. Is it petty and juvenile? Oh, of course. But it gives you confidence, and keeps you from making the same mistakes over again. I'd need both of those for this. Plus, he had bought me this vest on my birthday during the first year we were together. It was a miracle I hadn't outgrown it. I arrived at 9:17 p.m., exactly 2 minutes after we'd planned to meet up. Dean was already there, standing outside, ever the punctual one. He was checking his watch and looked as though he'd been there for a while. His chestnut hair had been cut recently, and he wore it in the style that he knew I always liked, exactly the way I always loved it. He'd run a comb through it at night, parting it slightly to one side, the Superman side. He was wearing a similar dress shirt to mine, but it was blue, and he'd worn a tie. I had to say, he looked pretty sharp. Of course he looked pretty sharp. God damn it. He was looking around apprehensively after looking up from his watch until he saw me and our eyes met. For a flash of a second, he smiled like he had a year before all the secrets and before he broke my heart. His smile faded, as if he was remembering the entire story unfolding in the same flash, remembering where we stood. He looked down and then up, his face set. I was feeling slightly less hostile because of that drink earlier, but I was still feeling adversarial. I spoke first.
Well, shall we go in?
He nodded, but didn't move for a second. I stared at him and cocked my head to one side. He stared back at me.
Dean?
Sorry, Jordan. You just,
What?
You look really good tonight.
This made my heart swell in spite of itself. I responded without really thinking about it.
Thanks. You do too. Can we go in?
We entered the restaurant and sat at a booth slightly secluded near the rear of the restaurant. The waitress, who remembered us from all the times that we'd been there before, brought us the wine we would always drink when we got here. Honestly, this place is great service. I took a few sips for courage before asking Dean what information he'd brought me about Captain Lovelace.
Before we get to that, I really want to talk, Jay.
I rolled my eyes involuntarily. He stopped and gave me a look that said, "I'm being serious. We have to deal with this." He continued on, and I knew he meant every word.
I know, I messed up. Nothing can make up for what I did to you. I know that, but I still love you. I really just need to know what happened. I mean, I know what I did, even though I don't know how he got there or why I did it, but there was something you weren't telling me. I could feel it. It was causing us to fight. That day when you left in the morning, I thought we were over. I thought you were done with me. You left so quickly.
I raised my hand, and he stopped speaking. I drained the entirety of my wine glass, and began.
Dean, I loved you. A part of me probably always will, but there are things you don't know about me, things you can't really ever actually know. And I get how much that was eating away at you. I do. I get that. I could see it. And that day I was about to give in. I was about to tell you. I should have told you back then. I should have told you back then that when I left, I knew I'd never wanted to lose you. I wanted to bring us together. So I was finally feeling that we were close enough that I could tell you what you wanted to know. I trusted you. What I didn't tell you that day? Well, I didn't tell you that after our fight, I went to the estate, and I got the ring that my ancestor, Thomas Wade, gave to his wife, a family heirloom as old as Newark City itself. I loved you more than anything in the entire world, and I wanted you to be by my side forever.
I paused, aware of the fact that slow tears were running down Dean's face, and realizing that they were running down mine as well. The restaurant was quiet that night, and some of the servers were looking on, so I adjusted my volume.
Of course, you know what happened next. I was gone for all of 1 hour. I came home, and I could hear it from the doorway. I saw his underwear on the floor in the kitchen. I saw your shirt hanging off that stupid lamp. Your underwear on the door handle like some college frat house. Something in me already knew what was behind that door. But I still had to see it. Still had to make sure. I still had to see it. I opened the door, and I just stood there. I watched you kiss him. I watched you, and he...
I couldn't continue. I was stuck on that image. The man Dean was with, I suppose, was cute if you were into a kind of guy like that. I suppose at the time I didn't really think about this. But he wasn't truly an obvious physical downgrade from me. I mean, I personally knew that I could probably take him in a fight, but this is part of the reason that it also hurt. He did look a little bit like an upgrade from me. I had to shake off the hurt feelings for a second, but before I could speak next, Dean grabbed my hand and was holding it to his forehead. He spoke so lightly that I could barely hear him.
Jordan, I know I ruined us. I broke every ounce of trust you had for me. I don't remember what happened. One minute I'm running to the door to run after you, and he just appears in the front door. And the next thing I know, we were there. I don't even know who that guy was.
I withdrew my hand. My anger was back. Oh, but now you know who he was? I bet you continued to screw him after that, didn't you?
No, I didn't. I promise you, I didn't. Never saw him again.
He took a deep breath and proceeded once his tears had stopped.
I only just found out today. I found out his name. A guy came into the station today. The guy told me he'd been hired by a young man that matched the guy's physical description. It was a random thing to admit. The guy who came in and said he'd seen a guy match the description of Jared Shooter from earlier this year in the same place he was in when he was hired. He said he was hired by the guy that and he was hired to stalk you. Does the name Alejandro mean anything to you?
I shook my head, but that name sounded slightly familiar.
Well, that's the guy. He is the son of Don Antonio, leader of the Parcelli Mafia. An anonymous call that came in said he, Alejandro, hired people to stalk you around the city. This was before you found me with him. I knew I had to tell you. I can't officially do anything more. Worse still, you were there. That Shooter knows your face. If we caught him, his lawyer would get him out on bail. You know he would have had one of the Parcelli lawyers on his case. He wouldn't stay jailed too long.
There was a pause, and then Dean grabbed my hand, this time squeezing it a little tighter.
Promise me you'll stay safe the next few weeks until he's behind bars, okay? I know I lost your trust, but I can't lose you entirely. I love you.
There was a long silence. Was Jared shot because I interrupted Dean and Alejandro? Was this my fault? The boy I saw looked to be around my age. Even if he is Mafia, there's no way he could come up with the money on his own for that marksman. Plus, that guy got arrested before he could get paid. Did Don Antonio really want me and everyone I cared about dead? Just because his son wanted to bang my boyfriend? What the hell kind of reason is that to kill a family? I mean, sure, Dean is hot, but come on. I looked at Dean again, and I thought a little bit more. This wouldn't have happened had Dean not invited that boy into our house. This filled me with a renewed sense of disgust and rage. I stood up to leave. Thank you, Detective Morgan. I'll investigate this on my personal time. This crushed him. I actually felt pity for him for a moment, but before I could feel anything else, I turned and walked out the door. I walked slowly a few paces from the door and then froze for a moment. My vision suddenly went really blurry and I felt dizzy again. It felt like the first time when I'd seen Blackbird. I could have sworn I heard a whisper, but it was hard to make out. Did it say forgiveness? I was stopped and down just long enough for Dean to chase after me after paying for the drinks. I heard what sounded like a clap of thunder nearby, the sound of the coming storm.
Wait, Jordan, please, just wait.
I stopped, and I turned to face him. His right hand rose to my face, and he kissed me. He kissed me with a tender passion that all of his kisses used to have, the way they used to be. I hesitated, but ultimately I pushed him off of me, shaking my head. He tried again, and I pushed him up against the wall, my right forearm across his chest and my left arm pinning his hand. Don't touch me! There's an unbridled sense of fury in my voice, much like the coming storm. I held him down for a few seconds, staring into his eyes. I could feel my steely resolve melting as I looked into his beautiful green eyes. It was the kiss that managed to break my anger down. And I eased my arm off his chest and leaned my head forward towards him. We kissed again, and time seemed to stop. The world didn't seem to matter anymore at all. I realized that the love that I had felt for him never truly let itself die. I don't think it even could have if it tried. After a few moments of our very passionate kiss, My comm device crackled on. Joanna's voice buzzed through my ear, sounding nervous.
Jordan, I've got a major alert. Blackburn Labs is on fire.
I turned away from Dean, pressing my ear, listening to her. I pulled out my cell phone and held it up to that same ear to make it look like I was answering a call.
The explosion just hit. The explosion set out a weird radiation sequence. I've never seen it before. Came from inside the building. The fire crew is mobilizing, but they're being delayed by something. Right before the explosion, I got a text from Scarlet. Not sure how she got my number, but she said she feels a major magical energy surge happening.
Roger that, on my way. 2 minutes away.
I turned in the direction of where the lab was, and prepared to run.
Hurry. I don't want to alarm you, but there are at least 2 people inside. Kieran is said to have swiped in, so he could be inside. Have you got your suit?
Yes, underneath.
Okay, I'll meet you a few blocks down, monitoring from the agency. I'll be on my bike.
The comm disconnected, and I realized Dean was following me.
Dean, I'm so sorry. There's an emergency at the lab. I've got to go.
I increased my speed. I heard Dean protest. I thought he would turn around and go away, so I cut down a dark alley. Because an explosion usually means something is pretty serious, I had to find something different for a way to travel. This alley ended in a flat wall. I looked around the dark alley and realized that they didn't have a fire escape. I'd have to do something different to get to the rooftop so I could travel easily. I didn't truly have time to use my grappling dart to get up there, so instead I created a couple force fields to help me jump onto the wall, and then use that to climb onto the rest of the wall. Before I knew it, I was on the roof. I jumped from rooftop to rooftop. I arrived at my destination about 3 minutes later. Jo's in the alley like she said she'd be. I don't know that I've ever changed faster or in a more public place. Jo signaled to her ear and to the laptop she was carrying. I got the message loud and clear, and as soon as the mask was on, I ran out towards the fire. The fire was high and blazing a bright blue color, which I thought was abnormal. The fire seemed to be coming from, and isolated to, not surprisingly, the 3rd floor, where technological and chemical experiments were occurring. I assumed the color of the fire was due to the chemicals. I didn't know if anyone was in the building, but I had to check. I put a small force field around my face to contain oxygen and prevent smoke from getting into my lungs. I wasn't really good yet at the idea of multiple super strong shields, but I had to at least try. I'd have to be careful to avoid harm, but I was going to investigate and save people if needed. I ran into the building. The heat was staggering, as was the smoke. There were several loud popping noises, which I assumed was the various vials storing various chemical compounds in the various laboratories upstairs. The fire had begun to spread to the 2nd floor, and then very quickly to the 1st. I'd only been in this building twice, and the 2nd time was because Jo was on a break and wanted food. So I ran up the back stairs, where the visibility seemed like it was a little better, and the sprinkler system was taking care of the smaller flames. As soon as I landed on the 3rd floor, I started calling at the top of my lungs. I didn't hear anyone's reply at first, but something in me felt a human presence around. I pressed my comm to activate Jo's earpiece.
Jo, can you do a scan of the 3rd floor? The fire seems to be concentrated to here, but the smoke is making visibility pretty difficult.
Already on it. The security cameras are still active, and they have a smoke filter. We built this floor specifically to withstand the fire, especially after last time.
She was silent for about 10 seconds before responding.
Someone's in Lab Suite 307. They're by themselves, but I can't see a face.
I'm on it.
I sprinted towards the hallway. I found the correct door and tried to touch the handle. I pulled back my hand when it almost burned me. I took the force field off of my head for a moment, and put a force field around the locks, solidifying them and making them disappear. I tried not to breathe while I kicked the door in. There was a man in a lab coat slumped over a computer in the corner. The flames were very close to licking his trouser legs. I ran over to him and shook him awake.
Hey buddy, time to go.
The man shook his head and opened his eyes a little bit. He looked terrified, but reached down to the computer and pressed a button. A mechanical whirring behind me made me whip round. I saw a giant swirling blue energy in between 2 electrodes. It whirred about before shooting out an arc of blue light. The arc of blue energy seemed to cut directly through my chest, and I was knocked backwards, as was the scientist. My comm buzzed, the technology inside of it panicking.
Oh my god, ow, what is that? Are you okay? Answer, Jordan, please.
I'm fine. I'm bringing him out.
I picked up the scientist, who was definitely a small and light fellow. I ran towards the broken windows. I tripped over someone, and I looked down. It was Kieran. Kieran often worked late in this building. It made sense that he would be here. I scooped Kieran up too. I threw the two men out the window, putting them in a force field and making their fall gentle and controlled. They landed softly on the ground. I felt a drop of blood fall from my nose. That used up a fair bit of my energy because I was fighting gravity and whatever. I pressed the comm and told Joe to get Kieran into the ambulance.
Hands up. And turn around slowly.
I turned around. I was standing face to face with Dean, who was pointing his gun at me. I was speechless. How did he even get up here?
Dean? How the hell are you up here right now?
How do you know my name?
My voice was still being modulated, and he didn't recognize me.
Look, Dean, we need to get out of here. Do you trust me?
Really? Really? Masked man that just threw two people out of a window. Now is the time you're gonna ask that.
He seemed really angry, but I didn't really have time for that right then.
Dean, put your arms around me if you want to live.
He did as I commanded, and I jumped out of the window. The lab had another powerful explosion, forcing us forward, nearly singeing the back of Dean's head. Dean screamed as we fell, but I swung my rope dart, and I swung us over to the rooftop near the alley where Joe was. I looked back and watched the rest of the building collapse into a heap of rubble. Joe was checking on Kieran, who was awake and coughing. He had inhaled a little bit of smoke, but he would probably be fine. I knew Joanna had seen me with Dean, so I knew that she knew I was alright. I looked across towards the building collapsing, and I thought I saw a flash of blue light blink out. Dean let go of me and got into position, raising his gun. I put the rope dart in its holster.
What the hell is this? I don't understand. Who are you?
Dean was looking angry and suspicious. I was backed into a corner. I mean, he could shoot me, I could jump off the building, I could knock him out. I did have options. But something clicked in me. Honestly, I was just done. I didn't want to fight with him anymore. He finally deserved to know. I looked at the ground and grabbed one side of my mask and peeled it away from my face. As I did so, I turned around and looked at Dean.
Jordan, what? Why? How did you...
Well, you wanted to know what I was keeping from you before. This is it. I am RedWing, and I am the defender of this city.
I held up my hand, palm towards the sky, and created a small force field, letting it hover in the air for a second.
How are you doing that?
Dean touched the outside of the orb. At first, his finger passed through it, but then I hardened the surface, and he was able to grab it, closed my hand, and it disappeared.
After my parents died, I developed this ability. I can create force fields and then move them with my mind. At first, I didn't use them at all, but now I use them to protect and serve.
I threw in the last line, trying to appeal to his sense of duty as a cop. Judging by the eye roll he gave me, he wasn't at all buying it.
And you kept this from me the entire time we were together.
Well, yes, but only the powers part. I became RedWing after we broke up.
I can't even just... What? I should have known it was you, though. I'd recognize that ass anywhere. For starters, you know this is illegal, right? Vigilantism is a crime. You can't take justice into your own hands. You're a private citizen.
Actually, you can, by making citizens arrests, which I've been doing. Besides, being a mobster is illegal, but that clearly hasn't stopped some people. Also, I'm not just a private citizen. I'm a detective, remember?
Barely a detective. You gave up your shield when you left the job at the station. Also, at least the Mafia doesn't do all their stuff in tights.
And neither do I. These pants are leather. Look, I'm not doing anything a righteous person wouldn't do. I respond to police calls because sometimes I'm just faster than the police. I patrol the streets at night. I've stopped 6 sexual assaults in this last week alone.
So you're the reason That guy came in with an open wound from a blade, talking about getting his ass kicked by a bird.
I chuckled, but realized that that wasn't a time to be proud.
And side note, is that dark steel?
I walked toward him, and he pushed his arms in front of him, against my chest. I touched his arm. I took another step into him, and his arm folded a little. I was now able to reach my left hand around the small of his back and pull him closer towards me. Even though he was only a few inches taller than me, I still had to look up to look into his eyes in that moment.
Look, Dean, we can hash all this out tomorrow. I'm sorry you had to find out like this. But now you do know. Now the secret is out.
While I looked into his eyes, I saw a mixture of fear, admiration, and best of all, understanding. I decided to reassure him.
I'm still a human. I may be a little more powerful, but I'm still me. You know what's in my heart.
I pushed up against him a little more seductively.
And speaking of things in my body, part of me, a pretty big part, really wants to get back to what we were doing right before the explosion.
It's a corny line, I know. It got a laugh out of him, though, so there's that. I leaned my head forward and kissed him. He hesitated for a moment, but his resistance faded and we kissed passionately. We separated just long enough for us to make our way to Dean's apartment, where we started to make up for that year of lost time.
Thank you for listening to RedWing, the audio drama podcast. RedWing is written, directed, and produced by J.V. Hampton Van Sant. That's me. The cast of RedWing includes J.V. Hampton Van Sant, Amanda Jacobson, Chris Green, Dane Shiner, Simon Weeks, Christine Osimo, Skylar Paring, John Buckley, Brittany Nicholson, Lucy Fitzgerald, Kenyon Lang, Katie Hearn Church, Nathan Foster, Atticus Jackson, Rhett Hall, and Kiara Jeter as Birdkeeper. RedWing's official musician extraordinaire is Nico from We Talk of Dreams. Additional music from Kevin MacLeod. The RedWing logo is designed by J.V. Hampton Van Sant, and official character art is from the fantastic Click Art Studios. We would like to thank the following shows for being inspirations and or being involved in the podcast itself. Wine and Crime, Crime and Color, Queen's Podcast, Brain Trust Brothers Podcast, Gravity Beard, The No Sleep Podcast, Conjuria, The Cryptid Keeper, Deliberations, Getting Off Podcast, Spirits Podcast, the entire family at Blazing Caribou Studios, and everyone in the #AudioDramaSunday family. If you would like to support the show, buy official RedWing merchandise, or if you just want to stay in touch, all of our links are in the show notes and on our website, redwingpodcast.com. Be well, stay safe, and fly high, heroes.